Wealth has historically relied on a single, simple mechanism: arbitrage. For centuries, this meant buying cheap goods in one physical location and selling them for a premium in another, like merchants moving cargo along the spice trade. Eventually, that geographical distance shrank into time. Wall Street deployed high-frequency trading algorithms, optimizing fiber optic networks to front-run stock orders by fractions of a millisecond. But those avenues are largely exhausted. Physical goods are hyper-optimized, and digital equities are picked clean by identical AI models. The alpha is gone. To secure massive returns today, the system has to stretch beyond stocks, bonds, and traditional commodities. It has to locate the remaining inefficiencies in our daily lives, the gaps in time, infrastructure, and politics. Capital despises a vacuum. Driven by a relentless demand for yield, financial engineers are theorizing ways to attach a price tag to the entire human experience, starting at a planetary scale and working all the way down to our private lives. Right now, billions of dollars are sitting absolutely dormant in checking accounts across the globe. The owners aren't holding it for strategic reasons, they are simply asleep. Traditional banks usually harvest that float, but decentralized networks offer a theoretical alternative called time zone liquidity arbitrage, cutting the bank out entirely. As users in Tokyo go to bed, protocols automatically sweep idle balances into short-term liquidity pools. That capital instantly deploys to fund traders waking up in New York, capturing tiny interest fractions before flowing back to Asia 12 hours later. This automated microloan system eliminates nearly all traditional banking friction, but that lack of buffer creates a terrifying risk profile. A sudden midday flash crash in the United States could liquidate those short-term loans, meaning millions in Japan could wake up to find their life savings vaporized while they dreamt. By squeezing yield out of the human circadian rhythm, the financial system ties every hemisphere together. Global economic risk no longer gets a chance to rest. Moving from the global clock down to national borders, we find inefficiencies in the climate. Farmers and hedge funds already use weather derivatives to hedge against crop failures, essentially betting on the severity of a drought. The emerging frontier bypasses the physical environment. Geopolitical weather futures are theoretical instruments paying out strictly based on the political reaction to a climate event. If the American Southwest enters a prolonged multi-year megadrought, the physical damage is easily modeled and priced in. But a trader could buy derivatives that only pay out if the government panics and passes emergency, draconian water rationing laws. This aligns chaos with capital. A hedge fund holding a massive long position on water rationing legislation has a direct financial incentive to see that bill passed. They could deploy lobbyists and fund political action committees to manufacture the exact legislative panic required to cash out their trade. This model moves beyond disaster insurance, turning climate-driven legislative panic into a profit-generating commodity. Shrinking the map further down to the city block exposes the cables that keep us online. Currently, we rely on centralized monopolies for internet access, but a bandwidth-backed currency allows neighborhoods to link routers directly, minting a token backed entirely by the gigabytes of data they provide to one another. You acquire tokens by expanding the hardware of the mesh network, letting neighbors route traffic through your server, and spend them when downloading. Communities can starve massive telecommunications providers of their base, bypassing their infrastructure entirely. In a neighborhood grid, exhausting your bandwidth tokens is a total blackout. Your ability to connect to digital society vanishes as soon as your wallet hits zero. The tightening scale eventually moves past global maps and neighborhoods directly into human emotion. At its core, a marriage is a legal contract that merges significant pools of capital. Wherever capital is merged, vulnerabilities appear, and markets will inevitably form to price that risk. This creates the theoretical framework for a divorce swap. Just as traders buy credit default swaps to bet on corporate bankruptcies, they could purchase derivatives that short the marital contracts of high-net-worth individuals. The fundamental analysis for these trades would look bizarre. Quants would scrape flight data to see if a couple is using separate private jets, or train algorithms to evaluate body language in paparazzi photos, actively looking for early indicators of a split. A board of directors might actually use this as a legitimate corporate hedge to protect their firm from the fallout of a CEO's messy separation. But once it is exposed to retail trading platforms, it rapidly degenerates into a wildly speculative tabloid casino. The personal trauma of a failing relationship is stripped of its humanity, fully quantified, and converted into a globally traded spectator sport. We have traced the funnel of capital down from the hours we spend sleeping, through the emergency laws we pass, the physical internet we rely on, and finally, into the vows we make to one another. To us, these instruments sound like science fiction. But a century ago, the idea of trading futures contracts on invisible, mathematically generated digital coins would have sounded equally absurd. Capital will eventually price every remaining inefficiency in human existence. The question is, will you be the trader or the asset?